Dr. Obina needs no introduction, because for the past 8 years, he has researched some of the most groundbreaking fundamental science of healthy living within the conceptual framework of lifestyle medicine. He uses the concept he terms 3Ms to expound on every individual's unique path toward optimal health span. For this module of his series of e-learning, he focuses on the mind, which is believed to have the most influence on our lives. In this chapter, he is focusing on the stress response. To actually tell you a teaser on why this has become fundamental and aligning with had been known all ancient civilizations. 1927. Quantum physics was introduced to the world, but founding fathers of quantum physics such as Max Planck write that all matter originates in and exists only under as a flux or quanta of energy. So science and scientists were forced to acknowledge the existence of a flux of immaterial aspect of universal order, a conscious and intelligent mind. So the logical thought is that since the mind is the gel of all matter, and since matter originated from a creative force, the intelligent mind is the source of all matter including our body. Sir James Jeans writes that the trend of scientific knowledge is heading toward a new non-mechanical reality. So the universe looks more like a great thought than a great machine. So from these new scientific foundations, the mind no longer appears to be an accidental intruder into the realm of matter. It is instead hailed as the creator and the governor of the realm of matter. The image of the intelligent order. A recent article in the journal Nature, one of the most prestigious scientific journals in the world. The article was written by a quantum physicist at Johns Hopkins University and is entitled, "The Mental Universe." Just the opening line in the subtitle D. Instead of going through the whole article, I just want to give you the last sentence: the universe is immaterial, it is mental and spiritual. So put that thought in your mind. But I have to tell you something, it's more than just a concept. It is now an understanding of the universe in which we live no longer from religion, but from science. Every ancient civilization and every religion lends credence to this understanding. Suppose science has finally got to the point where it acknowledged this. In that case, we have to rewrite and rewire our current understanding of how we were taught the universe operated, because that's where limitations crept into our creative ability to create our life experiences. If the mind consciousness has the potential to create your reality, then why is that relevant? The answer is actually a question that I would like to ask: why do you have to struggle to do everything? It's like we have to work hard and sweat everything to make things happen, when your mind is actually supposed to create the world. The answer is simple. The picture you gave your mind is not supporting your reality. The mind is the hologram of our body, designed through a complex system called the central nervous system, ruled by the brain. It is supposed to be the awareness control of all our lives' functionality and connects us to the universe and hence to the creative force of the universe. The brain directs our body's internal functions. It also integrates sensory impulses and information to form perceptions, thoughts, and memories. The brain gives us self-awareness and the ability to speak and move in the world. Its 4 major regions make this possible. The cerebrum, with its cerebral cortex, gives us conscious control of our actions. The frontal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe, and parietal lobe. The lobes are functional segments. They specialize in various areas of thought and memory, of planning and decision-making, and of speech and sense perception. The diencephalon mediates sensations, manages emotions, and commands whole internal systems. Sensory data floods into the thalamus from the brain stem, along with emotional, visceral, and other information from different areas of the brain. The thalamus relays these messages to the appropriate areas of the cerebral cortex. It determines which signals require conscious awareness, and which should be available for learning and memory. The hypothalamus helps to process sensory impulses of smell, taste, and vision. It manages emotions such as pain and pleasure, aggression and amusement. The hypothalamus is also our visceral control center, regulating the endocrine system and internal functions that sustain the body day to day. It translates nervous system signals into activating or inhibiting hormones that it sends to the pituitary gland. In front of the hypothalamus is the amygdala, specialized in processing emotions and memories associated with fear. The cerebellum adjusts body movements, speech coordination, and balance. When we jump to the side, reach forward, or turn suddenly, it subconsciously evaluates each movement. The cerebellum then sends signals to the cerebrum, indicating muscle movements that will adjust our position to keep us steady. While the brainstem relays signals from the spinal cord and directs basic internal functions and reflexes. The brain does this functions by a network of neurons or cells that combine to form circuits, like electrical wires and the wiring of a home. The communication systems are designed to separate each function using special chemicals known as neurotransmitters. So the cooling system has a type of neurotransmitter different from the water pump, etc. The midbrain, or mesencephalon, connects the pons to the diencephalon and forebrain. Besides relaying sensory and motor signals from the body through the spinal cord, the structures of the brain stem direct involuntary functions. The pons helps control breathing rhythms. The medulla handles respiration, digestion, and circulation, and reflexes such as swallowing, coughing, and sneezing. The midbrain contributes to motor control, vision and hearing, as well as vision and hearing-related reflexes. The nervous system is continually trying to merge the perception of sensations it gathers from the outside world through special receptors to the perceptions it is getting as feedback from inside world called interoception, and to merge these in such a way as to create appropriate response and actions. Sensation are through special receptors in the body: sight, smell, sound, vibration, and others. It is non-negotiable. It is limited to the physical. You cannot see infrared or ultraviolet, etc. No receptors. Perceptions are actually which of the sensations you are paying attention to. For example, you do not feel the feeling of your pants around your waist until someone points it out, or feeling your shoes until they hurt or become tight, etc. Perception is negotiable, and so you can control it. You can decide to ignore the feeling of the ring on your nose, etc. Feeling is the link between the emotion elicited from perception and the mind-body. That is why emotion is our body's concept or interpretation of what perceived sensations are. Thoughts. Now thoughts are spontaneously generated ideas that keep popping up in our consciousness, just like pop-ups in web browsers. The brain was designed for customization earlier in life through gathered experiences, and then it implements those algorithms and circuitry for the rest of its life in a wave of automated thought processes. So, all day long, we are reflexively doing things from our automated thoughts. However, thoughts can also be deliberate, like planning to travel, etc., and can also be like invoking imaginations. Behavior and action. As I said earlier, the nervous system is trying to merge the perception of sensation from the outside world to the perceptions of the inside world, interoception, and to merge those in a way that we appropriately operate in our environment. If you are waiting in a line in the bank, and your son is in the car, and you are worried about his safety if the tellers are slow, your inner rapidly racing thoughts and agitation will be incongruent to the time-lapse the actions of the tellers. So the appropriate thing is to tone your agitation down, since you cannot change the teller's action. If you are in a party, with everyone dancing and jumping, that racing thought and heart race plus agitation will be appropriate. So the nervous system is constantly in the dynamic interaction of our inner world with the external environment, and trying to figure out the appropriate response. Patience is when your inner alertness matches with the time and space outside. The mind is one thing that has always fascinated and puzzled us. It is the only thing that we can be certain of existing. Yet, apparently, we do not know exactly what it is, how it occurs, and why it occurs. Ancient religions and civilizations labeled the mind and calls it simply the inner being, which is the total of all our mental, emotional, and spiritual faculties, without drawing nuanced distinctions between them. However, we know scientifically that for the mind to create a perception, it has to register that information, then relays it through neuronal circuits for analysis, comparing it to the memory stored from previous experiences. It merge all these, and then create a form of response, depending on the circumstance. This means we can also internally generate the form from the inside, what we refer to as imagination. One thing that has been established is that the brain responds to both in the same way after analysis from its perception of the form. In other words, the brain cannot distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. Stress is the feeling people have due to a perceived adverse event, either instant or continuous, over time. Stress may be defined as any situation that disturbs the equilibrium between a living organism and its environment. It is therefore based on perception. Perception of threat, therefore, controls the trigger mechanism. Since the brain cannot make the distinction, the trigger can be real or imagined. The hormonal systems unleashed by the trigger as a response are hence non-discriminatory, whether it is an actual physical threat or an internal threat conjured by perception. The commanding center appears to be in the amygdala near the emotional centers of the hypothalamus, which influences all the endocrine hormonal systems. Activation of the hypothalamus, in turn, triggers the pituitary-adrenal axis, which stimulates the release of hormones that cause the physical manifestation of stress, also termed the stress response. As alluded to earlier, it is this prominent neuroendocrine response to stress, secretion of corticotrophin-releasing factor, CRF, release of epinephrine. Immediate response of the sympathetic system equals high arousal state, to increase energy. It is a psychological, physiological, and physical state. In the brain, norepinephrine, adrenal glands, epinephrine, and cortisol. This leads to increased cardiac output, skeletal muscle blood flow, sodium retention, reduced intestinal motility, cutaneous vasoconstriction, increased glucose, bronchiolar dilatation, and behavioral activation. Stresses include poor health, injury, separation, abusive events, bereavement, work pressure, finances, perceptions of events like foreclosure, fear of illness, etc. Whatever the cause, the response is the same and can be brief or continuous.